Okay, so we were in executive session. The meeting has opened already. We are back in regular session. First item on our agenda is the appointment for Susan Jafarian to the Zoning Board of Appeals as a member. Liz, didn't she contact you about some interest in this position?
She did, and to my knowledge, she audited at least one of their meetings, and she was very interested in joining the board. And this would be a 3-year term.
All right, any questions or?
I don't know the lady, but always glad to have a volunteer.
She ran for school committee. That's probably
Yes,
what
yeah,
her name. Yeah,
yeah.
the regional school committee. Or no, the Dennett. I'm sorry, the Dennett.
Dennett, right.
Okay. All right. Ken, we're discussing appointing Susan Jafarian to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
I heard about that as an interested party, and I was pleased to see it on the agenda, you know, assuming all the appropriate discussions have been held. I also know that Colleen's having an open house on the 20th for other parties to learn about the ZBA, what it does and how it functions. It's kind of a next round recruitment effort to keep them staffed. So yes, looking forward to meeting her and seeing who else, because people pull in, as you know, and want questions, and we don't always have a meeting just for introducing the ZBA, and Colleen has scheduled that.
Great. Okay, unless there's any further discussion, I'll make a motion to appoint Susan Jafarian to the Zoning Board of Appeals as a member until June 30th, 2024.
Yeah, second.
Okay, second. Roll call vote. Mr. Trainer?
Yes,
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Mrs. Joy, yes. Okay, so the appointment is done. Okay, I should have said first that we're operating with a consent agenda tonight. And are there any items you'd like to have removed from the consent agenda? I would suggest the minutes. We haven't seen the minutes from 6/21, so we'll have to hold those. And
Now
I
the
believe, go ahead, John.
consent agenda, was that sent out, or is that part of the?
It's part of the agenda. Typically what we
Okay.
would do is
Okay.
we would send out the minutes and the warrants as a separate item listed on the consent agenda so that everybody can see what they are before we're voting.
I'm with you. Okay. I
so-
guess I didn't read far enough.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
we'll hold the minutes, and then Liz has got the warrants, and I think you're going to go over that, Liz or Bree, or do you want to hold those too?
No, I can do that.
Okay, perfect.
You want me to do that now?
No, nope. Why don't you just do it in your, when you do your report?
Okay.
All right, perfect, thanks. Okay, so our next item is to rescind locally declared state of emergency. It's actually, it looks like to ratify the declaration rescinding the town state of emergency. This was presented by Steve Silva. This is with Liz and Art, and then Kathy Ferguson, I believe, are members of the emergency management team. So they're asking, go ahead, Liz.
Oh, I'm sorry. Art resigned from that, and
Oh, okay.
Kathy's term might be expired, but it came from Steve in his capacity as fire chief and director of emergency services.
Great. Okay. All right. So they're asking us to ratify the this rescinding. Yes. Okay. So I'll make a motion that we ratify Chief Silva's rescinding of the state of emergency in the town of Plympton.
Second.
Second, roll call vote. Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Trainer?
Yes.
Mrs. Joy, yes. Okay, so we've now rescinded that. Okay, end of fiscal year 21 line item and budget transfers. Lisa presented us with the document. Any questions or concerns for Liz before we go through it?
Uh, This has all been reviewed, right? Has the finance committee seen this?
They voted tonight.
Right, but they've seen it, right?
Yeah, they had to see it and vote on it tonight.
Okay.
Okay, any questions or concerns?
No.
Oh, okay, all right, so I'll read it into the record. So FY '21 budget line transfers from police, line 570, we're transferring $7,000 to line 565, which is also the police department line. From line 567, which is police station utilities, we're transferring $2,700 to line 565, police department. From line 570, motor vehicles, we're transferring $650 to line 556, police clerical. Line 570, motor vehicles, we're transferring $650 to line 555, police services. Under highway, line 322, cemetery labor, we're transferring $2,332 to line 320, which is the cemetery department. Under building, line 415, wiring inspector, $239.92 to line 405, department administrative assistant. In treasurer collector, line 220, we're moving $151.84 to line 210, treasurer collector salary. And the last requested budget transfer is from 170, the assessor's line, assessor's expense, $47.25 to line 168, assessor's support staff. So do we have a motion to approve the budget transfers? They were already approved by the finance committee tonight.
So moved.
Okay.
Second, I'll
We have a
second.
motion, a second. Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Russo,
Yes.
Mr. Trainer,
Yes.
Mrs. Joy, yes. Okay, so we've done that. So it looks like all of us need to sign this, Liz, or at least two of us. We'll have to go in and see Bree.
Yes, we'll have
Okay.
it printed out and up on the cabinet, so if at least two of you could sign off when you have a chance. And in the meantime, I'll let the town accountant know that it's a go.
Great, thank you. Okay, so now we've got revision of appointments and reappointments to board and committee members, FY '22 and beyond. So Liz, this list that was provided to us, these are the appointments we need to make tonight to correct mistakes that were made at the previous meeting.
Correct. I would recommend rescinding your vote from the June 21st meeting with the exception of the reappointments of Mr. Stiles and Mr. Alberti,
Okay,
to adopt this list as presented by the town clerk, and that would satisfy the vote. And then the vote, a copy of like the list that she provided will be included with your cover letter, and that too will be up on the cabinet for two of you to sign.
all right, thanks, Liz. Okay, so I'll make a motion that we rescind our appointment votes from our last meeting, which was, what was the date of that, Liz?
June 21st.
June 21st, with the exception of the appointments for Dave Alberti and Ethan Stiles. Do we have a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Okay, roll call vote, Mr. Russo,
Yes.
Mr. Trainer,
Yes.
Mrs. Joy, yes. All right, so I'll read through the motion or the appointments that we will be making in place of those that were rescinded. Vicky Alberti, Open Space, 6/30/2024. Nancy Butler, CPC, 6/30/2024. Rick Burnett, Conservation, 6/30/2023. Rick Burnett, CPC, 6/30/2024. Stuart Chase, HDC, Historical District Commission, 6/30/2024. Robert Doucette, Harry Jason Jr. Park Study and Development, 6/30/2024. Jeffrey Haas, Recreation, 6/30/2024. Linda Letty, Conservation, 6/30/2024. Gavin Murphy, Open Space, 6/30/2024. Charles Nickerson, Historic District Commission, 6/30/2024. Eric Player, Recreation, 6/30/2024. Katrina Player, Recreation, 6/30/2024. Jane Schultz, Historic Commission, 6/30/2024. Jane Schultz, CPC, Community Preservation Committee, 6/30/2024. Alan Wheelock, Open Space, 6/30/2024. Alan Wheelock, Wage and Personnel, 6/30/2024. Do we have a second?
Second,
Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Russo,
yes.
Mr. Trainer,
Yes.
Mrs. Joy, yes. Okay, Liz, we've got an
Christine,
amendment. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I think maybe just a quick comment on this. Our appointments it's been kind of a challenge, and the process has been a challenge for years, and it continues to be kind of a struggle. And there are kind of some significant structural challenges in the process. And so it's something I think we need to keep working on, and absolutely aiming at a new protocol next year that include the tasks and a timeline and a who and a how and a when. And I hope we can continue to be working together, town admin, us, the selectman's assistant and town clerk, and finally get this on target. So this has kind of been a thorn in my side for years, and it's kind of resisted our efforts. But I think we're just going to have to redouble our efforts, and I look forward to the process being much smoother next year.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. That's a great suggestion. This is definitely needs an overhaul.
Yeah.
Long overdue. All right, so for all of those individuals that were appointed tonight, they all need to go and see Nancy Butler prior to attending Nancy Butler. Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Good one.
Tricia Detterman to be sworn in prior to their first meeting. It's funny. All right, so the next item is we've got the amendment to ADA ramp project consultant agreement, and this was brought forward by the Town Properties Committee.
This was brought forward. Liz, is that?
I can't comment on this one. I have a
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay.
conflict, but
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so it looks like the Town Properties Committee has requested that we make this amendment, and it looks like it's to the compensation for the engineer, which is moving from $12,500 to $16,000. A fee will be increased by $3,500. Is the project still going to come in at 50,000 in total? Or
No, this is the ramp that would run from the old police station entrance to the main entrance now. We received a grant of $95,000 from the state. And when we originally, the assignment of the money was for a lift or an elevator. But after talking to the state more, they suggested we would be better off with a ramp. We all agreed on the Town Properties Committee. As we so laid it out, especially with material prices skyrocketing, it looks like we're going to come in very close, but we're kind of shaving a little bit. But here's the man who can talk to this right now. John, we're talking about this amendment to the agreement with our friends.
Which,
You want to?
the ADA ramp?
oh,
This is-
yeah. So going back to the beginning of this, they gave us two prices. One was for a project that cost this much, and one was for the project that cost this much. Because of the the difference in the procurement laws, depending on if you're over 50,000, there's more work on their end in order to put the bid together, to have the sealed bids, to do all of that part of the work. So simply, this was part of the original agreement. We hoped we could get it under 50, but that's not possible given the amount of materials and work and costs of everything right now. So
Better
John,
explanation.
will it still be under the 95, the grant?
well, we'll see what bids. So we have the primary part of the bid is the ramp, and the estimates are that we will be under the 95, including the costs for the consultant. Okay. We have as an alternate to do the new entranceway, the main entrance, to get rid of the stairs, the 2 steps that we have there, the ones that everyone falls over. And that's listed as an alternate. Should the first bid come in and we get the alternate, and we might be able to do it all. My guess is given the way that costs are, and given that we'll be going out to bid in the next couple weeks, that we will only be able to, with the money that we got from the state with the earmark, we'll only probably be able to get the main ramp in. But if the alternates come in at a reasonable amount, that's actually not an expensive part of the project. I think they're estimating like between 12 and 18 to do that. We might be able to look at other sources of funding to be able to do it as part of the project too. But there's a lot more materials and work to be done for the ramp itself.
Okay, so your committee is recommending that we assign this amendment?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, any questions, Mark? No, guess not. Okay, all right. So I'll make a motion that we sign this amendment number 1 to agreement for professional services between the town of Plympton and Beta Group for the ADA Access Design Plympton Townhouse.
I'll
Do we have
second.
a second? All right. Roll call vote. Mr. Trainer,
Yes.
Mr. Russo,
Yes.
Mrs. Joy, yes. Okay, great. Okay, next item on the agenda is the Carver Urban Renewal Project, status and next steps. Looks like Liz had gotten a update. I'm not sure from if it was the town administrator from Carver. Liz, did you want to share your update?
Sure, let me just pull up that. So I received an update from the town administrator earlier today. He explained that any possible public meeting in August would be one of the Carver Redevelopment Authority, and that they're currently looking at hiring a consultant to assist them with analyzing the project, and they might appoint a direct representative at that point in time that people could contact for information. They also have to figure out whether or not they will support a zoning amendment that would allow an increase in the height restriction. Currently, their zoning provides for a 40-foot height restriction, and they're considering adjusting that up to 65 feet by way of special permit. They're also looking at having a special town meeting in October, and at that point in time, they would obviously be looking at whether or not they were going to consider said zoning amendment at that special town meeting. But it sounds like nothing formal has been decided. So the recent newspaper article, I think, was on point as far as there may be a public meeting in August. If so, it'll be the Carver RDA. But it sounds like they're still in the planning phases and trying to work through some of the zoning requirements. I think it's something that we should stay on top of, especially if we have Plympton residents located near the project site who would potentially be impacted if the building height somehow gets allowed to be up to 65 feet. I would think that that would make a big difference for people, like a 25-foot height. And so I think it's something that we need to stay on top of. But it's one of those things that's kind of progressing along, sort of like hurry up and wait. I don't know, sometimes it seems like there's a flurry of activity and then there's not much for a few months. So we can certainly stay in the loop on it and on top of it. I do think at some point the board might want to consider, you know, if we want to go on record formally with any sort of viewpoint where we do have people in question, and the town directly abuts.
I like
would,
that, Liz.
I would kind of like to see us meet, maybe you, I think Christine, you've been our,
Mhm.
liaison, if you want to use the word. One, I'd like to make sure when we talk to them, they agreed to take out of the zoning for this development, the piece that abutted Plympton. And I forget the amount of acreage it was, but it was significant in that they wouldn't be building right up to the Plympton line.
Right.
I think we want to make sure that that's still in the plans and that somehow it hasn't got put away. I think that'll make a big difference. The 65, I don't know. I'd like to know, they have a fairly good sized property. Where is that 65 oriented on their plan? We can't really stop it. It's all Carver, but it would be nice to know whether it's going to be on the Carver side or more towards the Plympton side.
I'm
think-
guessing the way that the update was written, I'm guessing that the zoning amendment would just be in that general vicinity. Because I'm assuming that they don't want like a spot zoning situation. I'm guessing that it would encompass that entire site.
No, I agree with that. I'm just,
Not if there's a building there, it would just change, kind of unilaterally change the height restriction in that whole area from 40 feet to 65 feet.
correct,
I read of it.
correct. But they probably have a plan that they're starting to at least think through of
Right.
where things are going to sit. And it would be nice to know as they think about the buildings that are going to go in there, are they going to be towards Carver Central, or is it going to be right up against the Plympton line?
That's a good suggestion. I've seen before in the past, and I'm not sure if these engineers are planning on doing it or not, but I've seen in the past that they can almost do a schematic that
Correct.
shows you like the vantage point from certain abutters and what their view would look like based on building height, like how much, what percentage of the building would they actually see standing at ground level looking out towards the site. So maybe that's something that we can request. The formal name of what that schematic is escaping me right now, but I've seen it done before.
I think we want to stay in touch because I think as all of a sudden buildings start to go up, there's going to be a lot of chatter. And I think, quite frankly, Christine, when you and I went to the Selectmen's meeting out there, it had a good effect from the Plympton side. So I think it behooves us to maybe think about somewhere down the line doing that again.
I can reach out to William Sinclair. I think he's probably still the chair of the RDA for Carver, and see if I can get some more information about kind of that no build zone in Plympton, make sure that that's still in the agreement, and that find out kind of what they're thinking with this, the 65-foot height restriction, where they would be cited on the property, you know, if it's across the board, whatever, just to try to get a little bit more information from him. So I'll reach out to him and see if I can get some information, and then I can report back at our next meeting.
Sounds good.
And then we can plan on attending that, the RDA meeting when they hold that this fall. All of us.
I can send something to the town admin in response to the update, just asking to be kept in the loop on that meeting schedule. And I can also try to find out if there's an updated schematic that they could share with us. Would you also like me to check out the part about, like if they are going to do the zoning amendment, what area that would encompass, and if there's any way that the acreage near the Plympton line could be kept out of that?
That would be great, Liz.
All right, I'll pursue that now. Sometimes I think with stuff like this, it's better to ask sooner rather than later, before they're too
Yes.
far along.
Right.
No,
So
that
I'll
sounds
reach
great.
out to him tomorrow on that.
Beautiful.
John, you had a question?
Just a couple thoughts. One, given the topography of the site, it may or may not be a big deal. I think it drops down a fair amount onto that plan, but it's all dependent on where you're putting it and what it does from a sightline perspective. And then I guess the other point is that, I think it's good that you're doing a lot of work with the traffic piece of things from, truck exclusion routes and things like that, because regardless of what goes in here, there's going to be more traffic, and yes, 44 is right there, but if they need to go north, they're probably not going to go up 44.
Well, they did
So-
have a whole plan to revise that whole section. I don't know where that stands now.
Well, it can't go through what's there.
Oh,
That-
no,
that we
no.
know. So that, but I think they moved something down, and we're going to do something quite different as far as how that was going to come out, because it's dangerous enough as it is now. I mean, if you look at, the Amazon facility they just put in Kingston, there's a fair amount of infrastructure they've put around there, and of course that's not in a residential area. And it has access to Route 3 and 44 right from its space. But
It is quite a ways off the road, though. I mean, there's nothing there when you go out.
Right, but and then of course the other thing is that they built the infrastructure around that to be able to deal with the traffic,
Right.
for the vans coming out of there. So it's a little bit different, right, than what this would be. But
And we had talked about Montello being protected, and I think we still need to make sure that that's going to happen
Absolutely.
as well. Okay, excellent. All right, thanks, Liz, for starting that, and then I'll reach out to William anyway, just to let him know that we're concerned and that we wanted to be kept up to date on this.
Okay.
All right, so next item on our agenda is the BOS liaisons review.
Would you like me to share my screen? Is that easier?
Sure, that sounds great.
Go to the list. All right, one second. Can you see that?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. Do you just want to go down the list by committee, and we'll just say the name of the committee, and if anyone wants to jump in and change something?
Okay.
So there's Ag Commission, Animal Control, Assessor, Board of Health, Building Department, Bylaw Review Committee, CPC, Conservation Commission, Council on Aging, Cultural Council, FinCom, and Financial, Fire Department, Garden Club, Highway, Historic District, Historic Society.
Mark, if you wanted to lose one, we've got the Plympton Public Library Genealogy Club, and I'd be very interested in working with the Historic Society because I think there's a lot of overlap between the two, but it's up to you.
I don't want to get in the way of enthusiasm, so it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, Historical Commission, Housing, Library, OCPC, Open Space Committee, Planning Board, Police Department, Recreation Commission.
This
I
is
was
another. I'm sorry.
Wondering if with recreation, where it's kind of tied with open space, if Mark, you might be interested in recreation, or John?
Well, I was actually going to raise my hand because I think the Town Properties Committee is going to be very involved with the Recreation Committee as we lay out the campus plan. And I thought that made more sense. But again, Mark, if you feel strongly, I'll,
Uh, I love recreation, but I don't want to get in the way of enthusiasm and coordination, so it's all yours, sir.
thank you. This also puts me more on a footing with you two guys because I've had a couple of less than what you've been carrying.
And we want to share the joy.
Absolutely.
Great, I
The more the
appreciate that.
merrier.
Schools, technology. This committee, I'm just going to update this real quick to say Town Properties Committee.
Thank you.
Town Clerk.
Mark, I'd be interested in taking the town clerk.
Congratulations.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tree Warden. Veterans. Wage and Personnel.
Mark, it's up to you. I've got all the financial and I feel like, in a way this fits in, but again, if you want to, no problem.
Honestly, I've never fully understood it, and I'm glad for you to take that one on.
Okay, thank you.
Zoning. And then that does it.
Liz, can we add Plymouth County Commissioners to that list too?
Yes.
I mean, it's not one of our committees, but we do have a delegate on that. So Open Space and Plymouth County Commissioners. Just in the event someday I'm gone and someone else needs to serve on those committees. It's somewhere in
go.
writing.
You can't go.
We just voted you recently, correct, Christine?
Yeah, you did.
Go around. Okay.
Yeah.
That's on there now. I will, I'm gonna save this now and then I will get it out to everybody.
Great, thank
Thank you.
you. Okay, Liz, how about town administrators updates?
Okay. So we received another 32,000 in CARES reimbursements from the county a couple days ago, so that's good. And I believe I sent around the updated table to everyone for informational purposes only. So we're still waiting on a few outstanding reimbursement requests, but so far so good. We've largely been made whole. As far as green communities, we have our extension on the current grant cycle through September. They have begun the weatherization project at Dennett, and they also have, my understanding is some more work to do with the tank and valve insulation on some of the systems at Dennett. And they're also going to be doing Wi-Fi thermostats at the historical building, at the old townhouse. I reached out to our consultant, our vendor today, just for an update on that. It looked like he's out of his office, but I'll have an update on that tomorrow. At last check, I hadn't heard anything yet about them scheduling the Wi-Fi thermostats. So I'll find out when that's going to happen and get word out, and I'll make sure that Steve Sorrow is available to coordinate with them and let them in. And John Williamson, I'll also keep you just up to date on that, generally in the loop. Otherwise, I sent a note to Alan Wheelock from Bylaw Review today. They were looking at kind of setting their agenda for the next season going forward and what kind of projects they're going to be looking at. So I suggested that they put kennels at the top of their list. That's been kind of a hot topic of discussion at the townhouse recently. We have a lot of discrepancies in our general bylaws versus the zoning bylaws, as well as I think in some of the internal policies and procedures that have been in place for a number of years now. And then the other piece that we're also kind of bumping up against in signing the agreement with Carver, well, that solves some of our animal control woes. It does not take into consideration what we're going to do as far as annual kennel inspections. And to that point, we're actually in a situation where I believe there's one place in the bylaw that it actually references that inspections are going to happen twice per year. Then in other places, it references that they're once per year. And then in some others, it references inspections, but it's kind of silent as to how often those need to be happening. And again, this is no discredit to anybody who's been working on these regulations at all within recent years. Some of this stuff goes way back, and it's more just a matter of function of how the bylaws were structured. I think that there's even a definition somewhere for animal control, and it's not in a spot that you would think it would be placed in. And I believe that's where it may reference the 2 inspections per year. So I've been talking with Ken a little about it. Bylaw review is fully on board and happy to take on the challenge. They're always ready to serve and have served us extremely well over the years. So kind of excited to see what they come up with. And I also think Matt Clancy's going to have a lot to add to this. He's been overseeing, kind of under the umbrella of the police department, our animal control stuff for quite some time. So he's actually reaching out to Carver now to find out what they would suggest. He got a hold of the state checklist for inspecting kennels. So we're on the right track here, but I do think we definitely need to get
An applicant.
figured out in the way of that. Also along those same lines, Matt has been working very hard on our new phone system. We're not quite there yet. We've had some technical difficulties, but we're getting there, and he has put in a tremendous amount of time in trying to get us up and running. So right now we're in kind of a strange spot where in some cases the old phone system is servicing some offices, and some offices are actually cut over to the new system. So it's a little weird, but we're working through it as best we can. They encountered some structural issues within some of the buildings themselves, and things didn't go quite according to plan, but we're still plugging away, and hopefully in relatively short order, we will all be functioning on the new phone system, and then we can terminate the old services. And then I've been working on all of the typical end of fiscal year closeout things, and I'm happy to report that our new financial people are doing a wonderful job. And that concludes my update, and I do not have anything in correspondence.
All right, how about the warrants paid?
Just one thing on the update. Do you want to talk about habitat, or would you rather save that?
Sure, I can mention that. So John and I had a great meeting with the folks from Habitat last week, and we were talking about not just the lot on the old portion of Brook Street, but also the one on Main Street, and they seem very interested in that lot as well. So they were going to be sending their engineer out there just to take a look at things. To kind of summarize it in a nutshell, we would have to go through an RFP process because of the value of the land. That aside, working with Habitat and the state on a project like this, you get to select what bracket you want to work with. So they have, which I don't really think that our intent matched up with this, but there's like the new home buyers, like first time home buyers category. But then the 2 that we were most interested in, John and I, after meeting with them, there's the age 55 plus category, or there's the 62 plus category. At first glance, I thought, and this is just my kind of personal view of it, at first I was most interested in the 62 plus, but then I didn't know if we could do maybe a combination, like say we're doing 4 units, maybe do 2 units 55 plus and 2 units 62 plus. And I only say that because on the 62 plus, any people residing at the household need to be at least 62 years old. Whereas 55 plus, only one inhabitant of the household and one person who's the owner needs to be 55 plus. And I was thinking of elderly people who may have an adult child or somebody who's kind of a caretaker for them. And you wouldn't want a situation where anyone over the age of 62 felt like it wasn't, like they couldn't meet the criteria because maybe they have a child or a friend or somebody who they need to reside at the house permanently, who couldn't reasonably live there and meet those requirements. The other piece, they would be affordable, obviously, and I think that Jim and Amy did a good job explaining the affordability component when they were at one of our prior meetings. The other piece is that there can be a local preference, which obviously we would want. They were going to look into a few things that kind of shook out of our meeting with them, like can you stack the preferences? For example, can you have local preference and 62 plus or 55 plus? They're also going to check with their council on something that John brought up, which I thought was a good point. In looking at who qualifies on a financial basis, you also have to consider, say there's an older couple who, you know, meets the age criteria, but they have a home to sell in order to move into one of these units that's single level living. Does that count against them? And it would obviously count as part of their like income. So then the question was raised, could they transfer their existing asset maybe to a family member or something? Or would it be similar to like, almost like a Medicare situation with that 5-year look back where like elderly people, if you do something with an asset and then needed to go to a nursing home and needed that insurance, they have the ability to look back at your assets for 5 years and count that. So that's one of the other aspects that they're looking into for us. But they seem very enthused. Like I said, obviously we do need to go through a formal procurement process, but regardless of how it shakes out, I think we have a real ability here to do a very nice project and something kind of reasonable size. Maybe there was a talk of like possibly 4 units on a site, like 2 duplexes. They would be single level, very minimal. They do try to fill the bedrooms. So say if it's 62 plus, they might do like 2 units with 2 bedrooms, then 2 units with just 1 bedroom. They like the bedrooms to be accounted for and occupied. I'm trying to think, John, did I miss anything?
No, I think that's a good summary. Just one thing, there may be a little hiccup on the land on Old Brook Street in that John Norrie, who abuts it obviously, believes that Old Brook Street was abandoned and therefore we wouldn't have frontage on a street. So that's something we'll have legal look into and just figure out where we are vis-a-vis that.
Correct. And the other piece that I mentioned during our meeting with them, and I think is important here, if this does move forward and, you know, we get to the stage where we go through the RFP process and everything, I think at some point sooner rather than later, we need to have somewhat of like an internal development meeting where we bring more players to the table, like a representative from Board of Health. The chief is on board. John and John are both on board. They were part of like the initial site visits that we did. But I think even like having somebody from the building department, maybe Ken would sit in, like just kind of getting buy-in early on and making everyone aware of what we're looking to do there so that people aren't being brought in at the 11th hour. And it's like, oh, wait, we need this approval from this board committee. If there are conservation considerations, bringing in maybe the conservation agent sits in on a meeting. It seems a little premature for that now because they don't even know what site they'd be interested in. And moreover, we do have to go through the procurement process and everything else. But I think at some point getting everybody on board and some players to the table, at least internally, so that there are no surprises and each office or respective board or committee kind of knows what's coming down the pipeline. I think that helped with some communications later on.
That sounds good. It would be nice if we could somehow get the word out. I don't know if this is feasible or not, that I believe you'd get a tax write-off if people were to donate property. I don't know if there's anyone that has property that they would consider donating a lot for Habitat for Humanity, but I believe that you would get a tax write-off for that. So, you know, as things start to come together and we really get moving, it might be good to get the word out. I know people in the town tend to be so generous anyway, but if there was someone who had a lot that wasn't going to use it and thought that this might be a good fit for them, you know, it might be a mechanism for them to get rid of it and then to get the tax write-off for the donation. So it's exciting that that you guys met and we're starting to see some movement. So that's awesome. Thank you very much for meeting with them and getting the starting to look at properties. So great.
Hey, Christine,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
I'm going to say on that point, you know, I think the potential benefit here is that if we're able to do something creative with Habitat on one of the pieces of property, then that becomes an example of what actually can be accomplished.
Mhm.
And then I think the reach out will be even more powerful. That, you know, if you are able to put sort of 4 units in some way on there, and you can see how it's all set up and how it all sort of comes together, then you have, it's so much easier to get people to think about that and say, hey, you know, this is where town's encouraging you to think about this for other areas, and this is some of the benefits, and work with Habitat to kind of do an outreach to be able to create more than what we can with just the pieces of land that we have at our disposal.
Mhm.
You know, and you know, I think to me, the opportunity here is huge as far as what could happen with it. We'll have to get through it first, but you know, done in the right way with some nice, you know, nice simple buildings, and you create almost a little community in and of itself on each lot. And I don't know, I think it's just a really different way to think of it.
Thanks, John. Yeah, it's all good. It's very exciting.
Christine, I forgot to mention, Jackie Freitas resigned from the Council on Aging.
Okay.
I forgot about that in correspondence. It wasn't sent to me directly. Her letter was dated June 29th, and she's resigning from that board.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. She's been a
So we
member
can
of
forward
that
that
for a
to the
long time.
clerk's office.
Okay, thank you. Well, and we thank her for her service. She's been an important part of that and the volunteer transportation for our seniors for a long time. So Jackie will be
has.
missed.
Yeah, she really will be.
Okay, and anything on the warrants, Liz?
Yes, so warrants were part of the consent agenda and they totaled $25,175.34. The bulk of those were for the final invoice for the Town Center Campus project, which was a grant project. And also, we did have to pay an invoice for the architect on the Town Barn roof project. Which, by the way, that project is largely complete. There's one more tiny piece that they're waiting for. There was a supply issue, but that's just more or less capping off the job. And then our architect will be going out to a final inspection. But the roof itself is all done. And everybody's satisfied with that. So our architect has been out there. And as soon as they finish off the little finishing touch piece that they're waiting for it to come in, our architect will do one final inspection.
Did we get any pictures?
I asked about the photos. I'm still waiting on those. I think that the contractor may have been away, or it's possible that it was a glitch with my email because I'm waiting, but I just sent a follow-up. So I'm hoping to get those in and we can get them out to people. Because that's one of those rooftops as well that it's not really visible from the road. So it'd be nice for people to see like that the project came to fruition and what we're actually working on.
Yeah, I mean, it's, unless you noticed the yellow dumpster out there that was there for a couple of weeks, you wouldn't know that anything happened.
Right, and a few extra trucks here and there.
I mean, because it's really important, because this is not just, you didn't just replace a roof. I mean, this was a complete re-insulation at a much higher R value for the whole roof itself, as well as the roof and all the trim. And I mean, we should see a savings, I would think, even in the utility usage for that building as a result, and hopefully no more Iceland. I mean, that's the ultimate piece here. But, you know, for some of these things, you know, you can't see it, nobody will know it even happened. And so I think it does make sense to sort of push it out there and put it on the Facebook page.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I agree. And I think that we have a lot to be proud of. It was a lot of work pulling that together for a small town like this with some larger procurement projects. It's a lot of work to pull together all the front end and everything else with that. And it requires a team effort. And I think that everyone has a lot to be proud of. So we'll definitely try to get some good photos out there on social media.
Great. And the rain has been a very good test of the roof. We've had
Yes,
lots of it.
No leaks. We did have a leak at the townhouse in the men's room on Friday during the storm. It was manageable. Steve Sorrow was great. He sprang into action. No significant damage. It was kind of a slow drip in a couple places, but it was enough that we needed a bucket and the floor got wet and everything, but nothing catastrophic. And I think given the amount of rain that we got, I don't know. I wasn't taken by surprise, let's put it that way, but everything's cleaned up now. And even today it was raining pretty good and there were no signs of any issues. He kept checking it and rechecking it. Once things dry out a little bit too, Steve mentioned to me today he wants to get up there and make sure that the gutters are all cleaned out and everything. But it's just been so wet and not really safe for him to be up there. But as soon as things dry out, it's on his list and he's very aware of it.
Great. Well, that's good news.
We're at 9 inches of rain as of midday today. 3 is the average for July, for all of July. So this is kind of above and beyond what we would normally expect at all. And some of it's so heavy that, I mean, I have things wash out here that they just, and the leak that we had in the Board of Health office, that's possibly something that was also one of those really heavy rains where the water may have actually come from not the roof, but perhaps even the soffits and run over. But we'll have to take a look with the architect as we start figuring out the roof project about what's what and what all the things we need to fix. And hopefully with the new phone system, which won't be using any of those lines that are up there, we can take some of those, that spider web up in the attic out. So we'll see.
And John, just so you're aware, I did get photos of where it was leaking in the restroom, so I can share those with you. I don't know if it's helpful or not. I mean, we know, like you said, we know that the problems exist and obviously we've received a significant amount of rainfall, but for what it's worth, I do have photographs if that's helpful for Scott's team.
Good.
Excellent. Okay, so anything else, Liz? You're all set. Okay.
That concludes the update.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, and no action was taken on the warrant. We don't need to vote on those. It's just more of an FYI, right?
I think that we should just vote to acknowledge the amount.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we vote to acknowledge the amount of the warrants paid at $25,175.34 in total.
All right, what was that again, please, for the minutes?
$25,175.34.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Mr. Russo,
Yes.
Mr. Trainer,
Yes.
Mrs. Joy, yes. Okay, all right. Board of Selectmen raves. Who'd like to go
Christine,
first? Yep.
I think Suzanne Jafarian has joined us.
Suzanne, we appointed you earlier.
You're muted,
Sorry
Sue.
about that. I came on at 6 and waited for like a half an hour, and
Yeah.
then I had an appointment, and I was like, oh, let me try to pop in and see if I can just say hi.
Well, thank you
So-
for serving.
So
Thank you.
just so you know, we were in executive session. We weren't goofing around. It just took longer than we expected. So glad you found a place to be of service. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for appointing me, and I apologize for coming in halfway through. I just thought, well, let me just check and see if they're there, and I just wanted to say hello. So nice to meet you guys.
Good to meet
Thank you.
you. Thank you
Pleasure.
very much.
Take care.
All right, so who would like to go first on Branson raves?
So I'm glad to go. 2 or 3 quickies. Glad that end of year budgeting and administrative issues we've gotten through. Really glad that drought concerns have been alive for a while. And actually, Suzanne Drafarian, I'm glad to have new people, talented people of interest getting involved. Thank goodness. Very much appreciated.
All right,
So I
John?
have a rave. If you live on the north end of Crescent Street, we have a lot of excitement this week. If you've been following Plympton, Hilton Plympton, we have an owl that has decided to make its residence between the 3 houses on the street down this end. And it turned out that it was very lethargic, and the kinsman, who is my rave, they went and they captured the owl and took it down to the Cape Cod Wildlife Center, where it found that the owl had a broken bone and couldn't fly. And it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun watching it. It just moved around a little bit. It didn't fly. We had crows and hawks overhead. So it's going to be a 3-week recovery, and then who knows, maybe it'll come back and say hello.
What kind of owl, John?
Was a horned owl, is that right, Mark?
Oh,
There are lots of pictures.
awesome.
If anybody wants pictures or signed autographs, we can make that.
The owl's able to sign autographs?
Well, I signed for it.
Oh, okay, all right.
Wait, it's good.
It was named Jimmy Talon.
Jimmy Talon, oh my gosh, that's funny. Oh my gosh.
So thank you to the kinsmen for the effort, because they really did a nice job.
That's nice. My rave is for someone who I don't even know. I had a dead battery in Plymouth Friday night, and my daughter picked me up. The car just wouldn't start, and it's a new car. So brought me home, and the next morning we went to go retrieve the car. I was hoping it hadn't been towed, and it wasn't. So we took our jumper cables and got out, popped both of our hoods, and a gentleman was in the parking lot and asked if we needed a hand, which was wonderful because I've never jumped a car before. And I told him that I had Googled it, so I felt pretty good about it. And he said, please don't even tell me that you said, or I'm gonna forget you said that. That's what he said. So he jumped the car and got me started. And yeah, he was there with his wife. So he said, and I've got daughters too, so I could relate. So of course, my husband's traveling. This stuff always happens when my husband's traveling. So thank you to the kind gentleman at the Walmart grocery parking lot for jump starting the car in parking spot 6 that was there for an overnighter. So thank you to the kindness of strangers that are there
Nice.
to help each other out. So that's it. All right. Anything that you'd like to have added to the next agenda? I was hoping we could talk about the traffic safety zones, maybe get an update from Highway as to where we are with that. And then I hope to have something between Liz and I on the Carver urban redevelopment. And then we'll have some minutes. Anything off the top of your head that you wanted to have added? You can always add later.
Yeah, not off the top of my head.
Okay. All right, that's it. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and have a great evening, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Good.
So motion to adjourn. Do we have a
So
second?
moved.
Second.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Right.
Good night.